Welcome back. The 18-year-old arrested after 10 people were gunned down in a Buffalo supermarket Saturday told authorities he was targeting black people. Police say he was motivated by racist hatred and white supremacist views, in part fueled by extremist ideas on the internet, some of which have made their way onto some mainstream media outlets. We're joined now by Mubin Shaikh, professor of public safety at Seneca College in Toronto. And when you heard the apparent motives of these killings, what was your reaction?
Well, unfortunately, I was not surprised to hear the motives, given the upward trajectory of far-right violence that's occurring already. But of course, I was most overtaken by a feeling of sadness and tragedy over, obviously, what happened.
And in terms of the timing, what about the role that the pandemic appears to have played in this?
Yeah, in excerpts from his so-called manifesto, the attacker, the terrorist, did mention that he got bored during COVID, went online, went onto 4chan, and just descended into the radicalization rabbit holes that he found himself in. And so that had a lot to do, unfortunately, with his particular radicalization process.
You don't have to spend a lot of time online to see how some people do appear to be, I don't know, just like pushing against the extremes of like rationality, particularly on social media. What do we do to try to fight extremist ideas and at least stop them from turning into violence?
Yeah, this is a very difficult, of course, venture to try to undertake, because being an extremist and holding these views is not illegal. It's acting on those views in a violent way that becomes illegal. And so who's supposed to do this? I mean, this is a larger question. And so there are things that can be done. You have various NGOs and other kinds of awareness type programs with educators or parents or peers to be aware of some of the signs, to know that, look, this person is going into a whole other direction. Once they start writing manifestos, they start scoping out locations, they start practicing for those sorts of acts, that's when you know that there needs to be a serious intervention.
So tell us a little bit more about that. So for people who are watching, family members, let's say, who may be concerned about somebody and the things they're saying and the things that they're writing, where do those family members turn?
Well, I happen to work for an organization. Sorry about the shameless self-plug-in, but I do work for parentsforpeace.org. It's an organization based in the US that actually helps parents whose kids have become involved in extremism-related cases. I myself have participated in a number of interventions with radicalized individuals from across the ideological spectrum, not just jihadists, but far-right and others. My colleague happens to be Chris Buckley. He's a former KKK member who de-radicalized, and now him and I actually joined forces and talk to radicalized young people. So there is this use of former extremists in this disengagement and de-radicalization process, or this peer mentoring that we do. This is really going to be the best approach to take. A social worker is not going to be able to talk to a young person who's engaging with these ideas. They need to talk to somebody who has previously engaged in these ideas and no longer subscribes to them and can explain why that is the case. So this kind of increase in awareness, peer mentoring, parental awareness, this is really the only way forward dealing with this extremism problem that we're dealing with both in the US and Canada.
In this case, this gunman was investigated by police for making threats before, had a psychological assessment, but still was able to acquire guns. How concerning is that to you?
Yeah, very concerning. Of course, hindsight is 2020, and now we're learning all this information. And you're right, about July 2021, he had made threats against fellow students. He wanted to, he verbalized this ideation about attacking a school-related function, whether it was a graduation or something else. But what kind of counseling did he get? That's the question I would like to know. I mean, who did the counseling? Was there any discussion? If so, to what degree of his ideology? I understand, and again, the information is still coming in, but it was a very limited intervention with him. The counseling probably didn't last more than a day and a half. And incredibly, even after all that, he was still able to legally purchase the firearm that he used in this attack. So there are a number of gaps and problems, in that process, in that trajectory of his that that just didn't need to happen. I mean, it could have been prevented.
And of course, there's much more we're going to learn about this case over the next few days. Mubin, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.